I was the bad guy because I was yelling fuck you at them. I couldn't take it anymore. I could not fucking tolerate that environment. It was all about whether the hospital was going to get paid. And I was like, I'm fucking done. I'm fucking out.
If somebody comes up with something to fix his ISR, end the fucking story.
We don't cure hypertension. We don't cure hyperlipidemia, but we manage those problems. Why don't we just manage this problem? And why are we critical when we have to do a repeat procedure? It's not taking out a fucking appendix where you do it once and you're cured. When I was in second grade, dude, I brought prosthetic heart valves to school for show and tell.
The fact that you took this guy back 15 times to keep his leg on for 2-3 years so he can put food on the table. And I think that's heroic.
We need to continue to innovate and we need to continue to push forward. And we have to always remember that these are patients' lives. And when you cut their legs off because you think it's cheaper, you're fucking killing people.
We almost killed a person and it wasn't even in a hospital. Do you remember that?
That is the name of this episode. We almost killed the dude.
Two vascular surgeons walk into a bar and come out with a podcast. We are talking everything vascular and not. Welcome to the Life of Flow podcast.
The following podcast is not relating to my teachings and work at Del Cedar Medical Center and is for entertainment purposes only.
Welcome everyone to the Life of Flow podcast. And if you guys enjoy our rants about everything vascular, just go off complete tangents, have laughs and complain and everything in between, you are going to love this episode. We have Dr. Eric Dippel, a legend in the space, cardiologist of the Vascular Institute of the Midwest, and we just go off on anything that we find interesting, anything that bothers us, anything that we think is relevant to the vascular world. So I think this is another classic from Miguel and I. So hope you guys enjoy, and vamos.
All right, man. One of my favorite people today on the show, Dr. Eric Dippel. Eric, it's such a fucking pleasure to have you here, brother. Hello.
Well, thanks for having me. I mean, I was thinking back. I mean, we've gone back, 20 years now? We've had a lot of fun together, kind of traveled all over the world, and it's nice to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with you guys.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric.
You are certainly have been a mentor, of a good friend, an inspiration in many ways. And we'll get to some of those things as we naturally progress this conversation. But for those speakers that haven't had the pleasure to meet you, I think it's always great to just understand a little bit about you, about where you came from. Where did your journey start? Where'd you grow up, and how'd you get into medicine to begin with?
Sure. I kind of grew up with medicine. I live in Davenport, Iowa. I've lived here all my life. My dad was a cardiothoracic surgeon, and I kind of grew up with that. Was always intrigued by that at a very young age. And really, as far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a doctor. I mean, I wanted to be like my dad. He certainly never pushed medicine on me. He never said, you have to do what I do. But, I think sometimes when you're a little kid, you just want to grow up and be like your parents. And there's something that has always intrigued me about the cardiovascular system in general, or in specific, just the physiology, the anatomy. I don't know. I always took an inkling towards that. So my goals, my dreams when I was a little kid, I mean, I always wanted to be a cardiologist growing up. I mean,
Really, even as a kid?
when I was in second grade, dude, I brought prosthetic heart valves to school for show and tell. Who the fuck does that? Okay.
The cardiologist does that.
My dad gave me some in like a Tupper, or it was like a little plastic cup.
Like a flask?
Yeah, I mean, I still have them somewhere. And so I brought them to show and tell when I was in second grade. I mean, I used to beg my dad to go in to do rounds with him in the hospital. That's what I always wanted to do. So most of my, my high school, college, etc., was kind of just, how do I get to that point? That was kind of really what I would try to do. I remember going to college and I knew I wanted to go to medical school, but I didn't know what I wanted to major in, or, what I was going to do to get through college. And, and I met a friend early on that his girlfriend was in biomedical engineering. And I said, hey, what's that? And that she's kind of explained it to me. I said, well, that sounds pretty cool. And so that's what I ended up majoring. I was in biomedical engineering. I wasn't really biology and chemistry and the kind of generic things a lot of people do for pre-med. They didn't sound that interesting to me. And so my undergraduate degree was in engineering. Then I went to medical school. I went to undergraduate at Northwestern, and then went to Iowa for medical school, residency, did my cardiology fellowship in Kansas. And then I went to Cincinnati to do my angioplasty training, and had the pleasure of working with Dean Kariakis and Tom Shimshak, who are kind of, pioneers in the field. They're mentors that were really had a big impact in my life. And Dean was always, kind of on the cutting edge of cardiology, coronary intervention. Tom was a very early adopter of peripheral intervention, endovascular procedures. And when I started my fellowship, I really had no knowledge, interest, no really thoughts of doing any peripheral stuff. And it was really kind of through my exposure with Tom that I kind of developed an interest in that. And that's kind of where it started. I mean, even back then, 25 years ago, coronary intervention was light years ahead of endovascular intervention. I mean, the technology, the equipment that was there, etc. What I enjoyed about the early peripheral stuff was it was constant problem solving. It was constantly putting a round peg in a square hole, and you do an angiogram and you had to figure out how you were even going to get your equipment to the lesion, because we didn't have contralateral sheaths back then. I mean, it was, the sheaths all kinked when you put them over the aortic bifurcation. They weren't even braided sheaths. Every single aspect of the procedure was, like solving a puzzle, and I enjoyed that, and and then that's kind of how it started, I guess.
Eric, tell me, do you think that something about the engineer's brain is something that you take and you see that you maybe have something different than other people and didn't take that route? And then I think this piggybacks into that. It's like, why do you think it's my experience of what I see that I think cardiologists are more of innovators than vascular surgeons? Can you speak to that too? I think those two kind of may tie together somewhere.
I think that's an astute comment. I mean, I've always enjoyed kind of taking things apart and putting them back together, so to speak, and that whole kind of problem solving aspect. And I think that's what attracted me to the biomedical engineering field in the first place, was that whole concept of how is this, it's not just here's a stent, use it. It's how does it work? How did you build this? What is the mechanics of it? What are the properties of it? And then how can we make it better? And even through like consulting work, I get people that bring me new devices, new widgets all the time. And you look at it in like 2 seconds, you say, this is not going to work. This is a piece of shit. Or this is the next best thing. And there's something about just kind of how things are put together. But I don't want to, talk about different specialties. I mean, I have very good friends that are vascular surgeons. I mean, Miguel's been one of my best friends forever. And I've got IR guys that are good friends. And so to me, it's not the discipline per se, but I've always kind of broken people down into those that get it and those that don't get it. And if you don't get it, fuck off, and if you do get it, then let's go.
Yeah, I'll defer. Have a little different opinion than you. I think we as vascular surgeons, as surgeons, are more entrenched maybe in the ways that things have been. I'll do that self-criticism.
I will say, I think that you're going to think this is a dumb way to tie it, but think of a big pendulum where this is a small group of people, and they all kind of follow this pendulum that's moving in a certain direction at a certain speed in a certain process.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons that I feel like I've never felt, here's a weird thing, is I've never felt part of the vascular surgeons of the U.S. Like I've always had much more intellectual interactions with Europeans and Latin Americans.
Mm-hmm.
And it just seems like in the U.S., and of course this is, please, for any of you little fucking pussy asses out there that are going to get offended by this, fuck off. I'm talking about the mass, the collective mass.
Yeah, we're talking about
all swing in the same direction and all let themselves be drawn into this, whatever the society says, and that's what we're going to do, or whatever this guideline says. I think it's just because it's a smaller group of people with less diversity. Whereas you look at cardiology, there's so many of them. And there's so, in every little area of the country. And some of them are just it, man. The dude that's in the middle of fucking Nebraska, he doesn't have a lot of vascular surgeons, because for every one vascular surgeon, there's probably like 500 cardiologists. And I think they have to be a little bit more creative. Now, I don't know whether their background in engineering or not is the reason for it, but I think it's to Eric's point. It's some get it, some don't.
I think it's the constraints. I think what drives the innovation about it is the constraints that since we can fall back into the comfort of opening, then we don't have that extra place to go to drive that innovation forwards. So the constraints that cardiologists or interventional radiologists may perceive are actually probably in their benefit when you talk about innovation.
Yeah, I think medicine and surgery subspecialties are completely different. I mean, medicine's always been kind of more, let's try and solve a problem, and surgery in general is let's just fix it and go on. I mean, it's a different mindset to me. I mean, to me, the difference is for example, I've said this many times, but if you look at all the disciplines in medicine, and I mean all the disciplines, pediatrics, dermatology, everybody, the two disciplines that hands down have more randomized clinical trials than anybody else are oncology and cardiology. I mean, if you come in with cancer, XYZ stage, whatever, you're going to get recipe, this, that, or the other thing, because there's clinical trials that drive that. And when you look at cardiology, we've got literally millions of people have been studied for heart failure, AFib, hypertension, unstable angina, acute MIs, valvular heart disease, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And yet then you go to the vascular surgery literature, and it's a series of 10 people, and this is how I did it, and this is how you should do it. And so it's to me, it's kind of a different mindset. And I think that as we blend together, it's started to evolve, and I think I see progress being made. I still think that endovascular field is still, a decade or more behind cardiology, but that doesn't mean I think it's still evolving. It's catching up.
Can you help me see that? Like, where do you see in cardiology that this problem has been advanced, or this solution has been advanced to a more optimal state than a comparable solution in the peripheral space?
Well, for example, look at how we anticoagulate people after we put a stent in. Okay. In cardiology, there are literally dozens and dozens of studies with antiplatelet drugs, antithrombin drugs, direct thrombin inhibitors, combinations of those drugs. How do you manage that when people have AFib and require anticoagulation, but then you put a stent in the antiplatelet drugs? In the vascular world, we have one study, the Voyager study. That's it. And now people are starting to say, oh, here is a study that tells us how to anticoagulate people after a stent or after a surgery. And so that's an example to me of how things are starting to catch up. But again, you go back to cardiology, and it goes back 30 years. When the first stents were put in, they were clotting off. And how do we manage those? I mean, I remember the very first stent patient that was put in at the VA hospital in Iowa City when I was a medical student there was back in the 90s. And they didn't know how to treat those people. That person was on heparin, dextran. They were given Coumadin. They were getting everything. And they had 9 French sheaths in their groin. And I remember the attending said, whatever you do, don't stop the heparin. And they had expanding hematomas in their groin. And my job as an intern was to get up in the middle of the night when the nurse called me and just draw another line around the hematoma and say, yeah, it's getting bigger, and just watch it. And that's all I did. And it's like, there was nothing else you could do. And so, now we put people on, aspirin and Plavix and send them home. It's like, it's totally different. So I do think it's evolved. And I think the technology has evolved. I mean, we have now stents. I mean, now we have a dedicated stent platform for tibial arteries. Okay. We've had coronary stents for 30 years. So, I mean, it'll catch up, but we still need to continue to evolve.
Not even that, like, you don't need to go all the way to stent, just closure devices. Just you bringing back your memory of being an intern. I remember interns being told to pull like 8 French sheets and stuff like that. And dude, like being there on like whatever, like Plavix, aspirin, and heparin, and you're like there for hours on this fucking go. And now you just put a kilt in, and you're like, boom, boom, done. Let's go home.
You practiced cardiology, and so meaning interventional cardiology and peripheral interventions for a long time within the hospital, right? Like you would do both.
So when I started, I probably was, first of all, back then when I trained, I was kind of a unicorn. I mean, there's nobody that had coronary and endovascular training in 1 year. I mean, nobody had that. I mean, so when I came out, it was kind of like, it was unique because most people back then learned endovascular, kind of see one, do one, teach one from their partners. And that was kind of how it was. I had a full year of training. And when I started, I probably was doing 95% coronary stuff and 5%, vascular. But over the years, it just kind of flipped. You started doing more and more vascular stuff because people started sending you stuff because nobody else was doing it. But yeah, I practiced for a long time and in the hospital setting, but back then, the first patients, the CLI patients you saw, I didn't know what to do with them. People see a black toe, it's like, I don't know. I can try and do something, or else they're going to cut your toe off, cut your leg off. I mean, how can you make it worse?
What year was this?
99 to 2000.
Were you doing stuff just above the knee, or where were you working the most?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you one of the first patients that I'll never forget. I was 3 weeks out of my fellowship. I mean, I was probably about as green as you could be. I mean, I didn't know shit about anything. I thought I knew something about something, but I remember this guy came to my office and he'd had 3 bypass surgeries, fempop bypass. And the last one was 33 days before that, and it closed. And his leg was acutely ischemic from the mid thigh down. I remember it was bright red. He was in severe pain. They told him nobody can do anything for him. The guy was about 57 years old, which is about how old I am right now. And I looked down and I said, well, I don't know if I can do anything to help you, but I mean, they're going to throw your leg in the trash can. I can't make it a whole lot worse than that. So I brought him in the cath lab, and he was occluded from ostium was SFA distally. I mean, he had nothing. I mean, all the way down to like the first artery I saw was like his mid perineal artery. And I spent about 4 hours getting a wire through there, and finally getting through there. And it's like, I didn't even know what I was going to do when I got to the end. So I got to the end. It's like, okay, now what do? I thought, well, maybe there's some clot in there. So I put an infusion catheter in there. And I brought him back the next day, took a picture, nothing. Dilated all up and down the artery. I mean, back then we only had 4-centimeter balloons. It's like you're doing like 100 inflations all the way up with different diameters, exchanging, take a picture, no flow. And then so now I'm like, oh shit, now what am I gonna do? And then, another 4 hours into it, and I'm like, well, I could put some stents in, but back then stents in the SFA were taboo. But I'm like, I got no other options at this point. I got no flow. So I stented from his middle of his perineal artery all the way back to the origin of his SFA.
Total of 30 stents.
It was long. Took a picture and there was no flow. And I was like,
Oh my God. I can relate so much to this.
I'll put the infusion catheter back in overnight. Brought him back to the cath lab the next day, took a picture, and my eyes were like this big. It was fucking wide open. There was amazing flow all the way down to his foot. His leg felt better. And I was like, I don't even know what I just did, but I just spent like 8 hours, 10 hours trying to fix this guy's leg. Okay. So this guy was on disability, and he went back to working. He was a meter maid for the gas company. He went back to employment. In the next couple years, he probably had conservatively 15 episodes of stent thrombosis. His leg would be cold. I'd bring him back in, put TPA in there. I learned more from doing procedures on him than anybody. And it was like on the job training. And he came to me one day and he said, Dr. Dippel, I appreciate everything you've done for me, but my insurance company has told me I've reached my lifetime cap and I can't come see you anymore. And I got to go to the VA. And I said, well, Larry, I appreciate, if you ever want to come back, I'm happy to take care of you. He went to the VA. Within 6 months, they cut off his leg, and within 6 months, he was dead. He was about 62 years old at that point. One of those things that's never left me. And it's like, you talk about saving legs and saving lives. And that's really something that's always stayed with me, is that you make a huge difference in people by just keeping their legs attached. And that's kind of where some of my passion comes from, is that, we take it lightly when insurance companies deny shit and they won't let you do something. People are going to die over this, and that's what happens. That was one of those cases where it's like, it's always stayed with me, because I didn't know what I was doing back then. I had no idea. I was making it up as I went, and every time he came in, I was making stuff up, but you managed to keep him alive.
Yeah, that's when these conversations about like cost of, like, say, one way of doing things versus another, I think are kind of very short-sighted, because after you exhaust all the greatest evidence, man, you can't do 15 bypasses to someone. And it's not for everyone to do 15 procedures on someone, but someone that's working, that's putting, like, that has the motivation to put the food in the table for their family, that's working for the electric company, it's not the same as someone who isn't, or who doesn't have that. So,
Xarelto, or drug-eluting stents, or drug-coated balloons, or all these other things that we have now, I may not have ever had to do those many procedures. I mean,
I was going to make the comment, Eric, that if Larry walked into your office today, I 100% assure you that it would be an absolutely different scenario, because evolution, technique, and your current state of knowledge and experience would allow you to bring potentially more durable. And with that, I'm not trying to I'm not saying that there's, because this is something that I battle a lot with, is recurrent disease on patients that I've had to just put a lot of metal in to keep them open, and they just keep coming, man. And so now I'm doing some other things, like, I'm putting them on these super high doses of cholesterol lowering. I'm trying to get them on Repatha, trying to do something to stabilize. There's this signal on silostazole also potentially helping with ISR, but it's almost like, listen, if my job is to open it, then that's my job. And if I can get it open and it's good, the technology is what's behind, right? It's
yeah,
pharmaceuticals that's what's not behaving. If somebody comes up with something that fixes ISR, in the fucking story, then I shouldn't take somebody back 2 times a year. You can't try to somehow make me the bad guy in a movie where assisted patency rate to keep somebody going is somehow a bad thing.
no, it's not. That's a ridiculous argument. But going back to what we were talking before, one of other guests, Derek, is like, well, you can't really expect someone that has a hemoglobin A1C of 11 to stay patent forever. But is it, do we say that, is the fact that you took this guy back 15 times to keep his leg on for 2-3 years so he can put, food on the table? I think that's heroic. I think that's fucking heroic. And I think it should be frowned upon.
Well, and then some of these patients you do 2 or 3 times, and by the 4th or 5th, they are much more tolerable, and they've got some collaterals going, and sometimes you don't have to go back. That's the best story Larry could have had.
When you do something like that and you're failing, you try and come up with a better solution to the problem. And that's led us to the technology that we have now. And interwoven stents. If I would have had an interwoven stent, instead of putting a slotted nitinol tube stent behind his knee, it would have never, had a problem with it, with thrombosing, or etc. And so I think that we're in a better place, but we need to continue to innovate, and we need to continue to push forward. And we have to always remember that these are patients' lives. And when you cut their legs off because you think it's cheaper, you're fucking killing people. It's just fucking wrong what the insurance companies are doing,
And also, like, us, not being cognizant that message being driven into us and being aware of it. And, we have to be responsible with the resources of society also. But it's a difficult balance, and we just always have to be on the side of the patient. But I was going to say, as far as, like, innovation, like, that's one of my big, not griefs or whatever, but, like, somebody that defends one side of the argument versus another is not, I don't think in particular is necessarily the the philosophy beside endovascular or open surgery. I think like if you innovate, like never bet against human innovation. So whatever side is innovating the most, eventually will have the most perfect outcome. So the thing is like, what innovation have we come up with in open surgery as compared to endovascular? Like in relative terms, zero, absolute zero. So
Yeah.
it's not that one is the other. It's like, okay, let's put some ideas into innovation, and all these things have served us for a long time, but how can we make them better?
Yeah, I just think that, my mindset's always been that we haven't solved any of these problems. I mean, we always have to keep finding better ways to do things. How I practice now, what I do to patients now is not nearly what I did, back when I started. I had one of my dad's colleagues when I was growing up, when I was a kid. I remember was a radiologist, and he said 90% or more of what he practiced by the time he retired was nothing that he learned in medical school. But I mean, people that have a closed mind and just kind of keep doing things the same way they keep doing things and aren't trying to look to do anything better, you're not pushing the envelope that way. And I think that's, some of this criticism that we hear in the lay press, the New York Times, etc., all that bullshit, that's just trying to suppress progress, suppress innovation. I mean, we don't cure diabetics, we don't cure hypertension, we don't cure hyperlipidemia, but we manage those problems. So why don't we just manage this problem? And why are we critical when we have to do a repeat procedure? It's not taking out a fucking appendix where you do it once and you're cured. These are chronic conditions that the patients aren't cured. The only thing that cures atherosclerosis is death. That's the only thing that cures it. I don't know why we get critical when you have to go back in and re-intervene on someone. And that's the benefit to me of endovascular procedure. The best surgeon in the world, I don't care who you are. I mean, you could be Miguel, but the best surgeon in the world, okay, you can only bypass something a handful of times, right? You run out of conduit, you run out of dissection planes, you run out of anastomotic targets, et cetera, et cetera. I could go in there every other day and inflate a balloon if I had to. I mean, that's not ideal, but it's so why don't we try and improve on that and stop being critical when we have to do it that way?
Yeah, I think the future is gonna be the hybrid. I see the future being a hybrid of both. I see us like fucking endovascular implanting live bypasses. That's what I see.
Live bypasses.
Live bypass grafts. Like the graft is alive, and I see us endovascularly implanting it.
No, yeah, I think it's going to be something about like self-harvesting. Like I think scaffoldings are going to just allow to recruit healthy endothelium in a less atraumatic way. I think this sense of I think we're going to give up on these massively calcified SFAs for sure.
I think stents
I don't think you can do shit to
I
that.
don't think we're gonna use stents.
I think we're going to all off-road.
Yeah.
Like
Off-road, exactly.
get out of the artery.
We're gonna get out of the artery and get back
just
in.
put
Like,
something on
yeah.
the side, but not like PTFE stents, but maybe like a
Like a
scaffold that allows for this
the cells to
living cells to.
That's it.
I think there's a lot of that's going to be happening in the future. But anyway, Eric, I really would like to talk a little bit with you about this transition that you've done personally. I'd love to dive a little bit. You gave your soul to the hospital for many years, same way I did, the same way a lot of other docs did. And I will say it wasn't a surprise when I heard you say, fuck them. I'm going to just go on my own and do my own thing. Would you mind walking me a little bit through what that was, those years there and what they surmounted to, and then maybe the storm that came before that for you emotionally, internally, and how you've been able to move past that?
I'll be honest with you, Miguel. I haven't really talked about this too often, and I haven't told this story very often. But I think that you bring a point that I would like to share. Is that like I said, I grew up always wanting to be a cardiologist, and I always wanted to come back to my hometown, and that was always my goal. And my dad did his cardiothoracic training at the University of Iowa in 1972 and 3. And he did the first bypass surgery in the state of Iowa outside the university in 1974. And that was something I was always very proud of. And I always wanted to come back and work in that hospital. And that was my goal. That was always my goal. And I remember I finished my fellowship and I was 32 years old. And I said to my wife, I said, what do you do when you've accomplished your lifetime goal and you're only 32 years old? And she kind of looked at me like I was stupid. And she said, well, you got to find new goals. I'm like, well, that seems intuitive there, doesn't it? And so, I kind of thought about it for a while, and I didn't come up with the right away, but it's like I wanted to kind of carry on that legacy. I guess that was always in the back of my mind, is carry on that legacy and kind of take what my dad had accomplished and take that to another level. And I thought, that was kind of what I wanted to do. But, after being in the hospital for several years, I realized that that was not the hospital's goal. And so I would have problems with the hospital system. I saw people dying, and other basically bad things happening, but the rules were being followed. And I quickly learned that if you follow the rules, it was okay if you killed people, but if you didn't follow the rules, even if you saved someone's life, you were a bad person. And that's really what happened. I'll give you an example of that. When the Obamacare era came around and we had to do everything by electronic medical records, and back in the day, if a patient came in for an elective outpatient stent, I'd write paper orders, I'd write discharge home on same medications plus Plavix, sign my name, boom, done. Now, you had to put everything into electronic records to reconcile the medications. Most of the times, those medications were put in wrong. Okay. One time I was in the hospital, and there was a code blue called on the surgical floor, and I was nearby, and so I responded to the code, me and one of the pulmonologists, and we were trying to resuscitate this guy, and we coded him for a while, and he ended up dying. He was a 73-year-old man who was a retired veterinarian on the county board of health at one of the counties next to where I live. I mean, this guy wasn't like some homeless person that nobody cared about. This guy was a respected individual, etc. Turns out when we started getting his labs back after he was dead, his blood sugar was over 1,000. The guy had an insulin pump, and the nurses couldn't figure out how to put the insulin pump order into the electronic medical records, so they just didn't give it to him. So he died. He came in for an elective thoracoscopic lung biopsy, an elective outpatient procedure, and he died because of a medical error. And I was furious. And when I started yelling at the administrators, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, because you're killing people, I was the bad guy because I was yelling fuck you at them. And so eventually we got divorced. I couldn't take it anymore. I could not fucking tolerate that environment where you had to follow these insane rules that made nothing in the patient's best interest. It was all about whether the hospital is going to get paid, whether the administrators are going to get paid. You had to hop on your right foot 3 times, turn around in circles 4 times. The rules that were written not by any physicians. And I was like, I'm fucking done. I'm fucking out. And so, we basically got divorced. I told them to fuck off. They told me to fuck off. But I also did that in a calculated manner because I knew I had a backup. I knew that OBLs existed. I'd been talking to colleagues in industry around the country, and I knew that I could get out on my own and be more successful by myself than I could have been at all in a hospital setting. That's the background of how I got to where I'm at.
How have you changed since you took the risk on yourself and had put the bet on yourself? Before you were working for a hospital, you had some kind of blanket of security, but then you were like, no, this is what I'm doing. How have you changed after making that bet on yourself?
I think that being on your own puts you back in the center of healthcare. When you're working in a hospital, as a physicians, I'm not about people bowing down in front of me, but physicians used to be a position of respect. Now, you're no more important than the guy that's pushing the broom down the hallway or the person serving you a hamburger in the cafeteria. I mean, physicians are just commodities. They just throw them around. Now I'm back in the center of healthcare. I am responsible for taking care of patients' health from the second they walk in the door until the second they leave my office. And so you have to be a little more responsible for everything. I mean, you have to be aware of everything that's going on at all times. I mean, I've got a great, amazing staff that helps me. I can't do everything by myself, but you are now back in the center of things, and I like it. I mean, I think that's how it should be. That's why you go to school for 15 years, is to be in this position.
And has that brought other things to your life? You know, putting yourself out there, giving yourself the opportunity, has that brought other opportunities to you?
Yeah, I mean, about 5 years or so ago, I kind of got to a point where I said to myself, I've put in a billion stents. That is not really a technical challenge to me as much anymore. I mean, I enjoy it. I love it. I love taking care of patients. But to me, it's kind of like, how can I take the knowledge or what I have and help other people? I know, Miguel, you just got into an OBL not too long ago. How can I take my experience and help other people? And so that's why I got involved in things like OEIS and other organizations, Sky, just being more involved on another level to try and maybe work, I guess, behind the scenes to help other people see the same success that I've had. That's kind of what I've been working on more than anything in the last few years.
At a personal level, Eric, do you feel that now, a few years into this, uh, business probably fairly stabilized, some of the initial debt, if not most of it, already paid off, and some of these like initial stress factors, gone deep down? Are you more calm? Are you happy? Are you like what? Or let me say, what changes have you noticed at a personal, non-professional level have come for you after leaving the hospital and now being in a better place, in a better side of service?
Well, I think if you talk to my family, they'd probably tell you that I'm happier. I don't come home and want to kick the dog anymore. I mean, I think that the line of work that we're in is stressful no matter what you do. We're dealing with some of the sickest of the sick people. I mean, some of these people with critical ischemia, I mean, they have basically stage 4 cancer and their life expectancy is short. And it is stressful from that standpoint. I probably work as many or more hours than I do now, but to me, it's more rewarding. It's more rewarding because I feel like it's like my own little personal empire, my own practice. I've got a sign outside my door. When we started this, my office manager said, "What do you want on the sign on your door?" I said, "I want the word paradise on my office door." So they say, "Where's the doctor?" They say, "He's in paradise." And that's how I view it. And I love it. I mean, I wouldn't do it. I wish I would have done it 20 years ago. I'm much more happy internally. There's a lot more satisfaction. I mean, I think that without realizing it, I was probably severely suffering from burnout, and my career was probably on a short trajectory. I feel like it rejuvenated my career, my life. But I can't say that's less stressful, because I think that what we do, I mean, you're walking on a tightrope without a safety net. And so you have to take that with respect and be serious about it. But you can do it safely and effectively and not kill people. But it's definitely a more rewarding. I set my own hours. I mean, I still work 12 hours a day, but if I want to go home right now, I go home. It's kind of how it is.
Do you feel, I'm funny enough, you said you just started, now it's 3 years since I've been at this. But so time flies. But one thing that I've noticed is that sometimes it feels lonely. I feel sometimes lonely because I feel like before, I never really had a problem with the people I worked with, right? Like I remember having really good colleagues that I loved having conversations with, having a cup of coffee, or, hey, look at this CT scan. What the fuck do you think I should do? Or maybe having somebody come in and have another set of eyes. I don't know, did you do something to this dissection or not, right? And that's something that I feel that I miss. And so I sometimes feel like, man, being out here and being this, it's paradise, yes. But it also it feels lonely at times. Have you ever gotten that?
Yeah, I mean, there is a camaraderie that you miss about being in the hospital. I mean, I remember going to the lounge to eat lunch, and you just kind of sit there and BS with some guys for a few minutes, and say, "Hey, how's the family going?" and stuff. And there's definitely less of that. So to that extent, yeah. Practicing by yourself. I mean, I suppose if you had a group, 3 or 4 or 5 guys working with you, it may be different. I mean, I tell you from a personal standpoint, I've got 12 staff members and I love them. They're great. They're all hardworking, and this is not anything disrespectful, but they're all women, and it wouldn't be bad if I had one guy working with me once in a while, So yeah, it is a little different, but yeah, it's good. It's good.
Would you consider you're happy where you are as a one-man show, or are you thinking of, if there is the opportunity, bring some more partners, or would you think that's in a way adding just complexity to what seems to be right now a very good state of mind?
No, I would love to entertain having a partner if someone wants to come move to Iowa. Miguel, if you're interested, I know your fucking skin is too thin to come up here. Remember we almost killed that guy?
Dude, we almost killed a person, and it wasn't even in a hospital. What, do you remember that?
Yes.
How do you almost kill someone?
Miguel came to visit, and I picked him up at the airport. It was probably around 10 o'clock, and we're driving down the interstate to his hotel.
At night.
Yeah.
10 o'clock at night. And we're kind of going over the stretch of the interstate where there's this little rise, and then the hill kind of went down. And I was going 70 miles an hour, and we came over this hill, and there was a guy standing in the middle of the lane, and he was right in front of me. And I'm going, and I like swerved, and I was like, I mean, my heart was pounding. I mean, this guy almost just like got smeared over the top of my car. Miguel, you remember that, don't you?
Of course I do. And I mean, there's like snow all over, because it was also in
Oh,
winter.
wow. You guys almost
And I
died.
remember the car even went like woo woo woo, that kind of thing before it kind of stabilizes. I shot myself so badly. Like, we got to go to the hotel. I got to change right now.
There was a guy standing in the middle of the highway. It's like 10 o'clock at night. It was like, I mean, my heart was pounding. I mean, we almost killed a dude. Seriously, we almost killed him.
It was awesome, man.
That is the name of this episode. We almost killed the dude.
Eric took me to a Pee-wee a football game. That was
Uh-huh.
awesome.
Yeah.
Like seeing the little kids with like their big fat helmets just, knocking each other out. Then we went to the little bar at the city. It was really fun. The interactions I had with the locals.
Yeah, if there's anybody out there listening, wants to give me a call, we've got more than enough business for anybody. I mean, I don't need to work as hard as I'm working, I can tell you that. So
Is that something that's in your vision, to have what you built live past you? Go on and prosper? Is that something you care about?
I'm at the point in my career where, you kind of start to see the end of the tunnel. I mean, I'm not going to live till I'm, 100 years old and practice till I'm 100 years old. I mean, I've been doing this for 25 years and I enjoy what I do and I'd like to continue doing it. But, you recognize eventually you're going to slow down and, I wouldn't certainly mind having some younger guys come in and start doing some of the work that I've been doing. I'd be happy to mentor them and train them and teach them and do what I do. But yeah, you start to see that. I mean, you start to see that for sure.
We've got some good news, I would say, after many years of just cuts and cuts. It seems like we are finally looking up to maybe a few bumps on our codes, reimbursement wise. They're also accepting modifiers for complexity.
Really?
Finally.
Wow.
Like it'll increase up to 20%, opening up a 2-centimeter stenosis at a VSFA could never be comparable to doing a bidirectional, 30-centimeter CTO, right? It's just two different monsters. And the acceptance that that's going to come at a improved rate at reimbursement, I think is something amazing. And I don't know that one thing can be responsible, whether it's OEIS, where it's a SCI, where it's a combination of all these things, all the letters we've written. But would you mind commenting a little bit about this? Because I'm sure that you've had something to do.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that I got involved in. I've been involved with it for the past few years. And so I was at the CPT meeting in Albuquerque when all these codes got approved and when it went through. And so this kind of alludes back to what I was talking about when I tried to get more involved 5 years ago at some of these societal level things. But this was absolutely something that, first of all, the new lower extremity codes are multiple societies. This is not one individual or one society, But this has been a project that's been going on for over 5 years now. So this has been quite a huge undertaking. And I can get into all the details of how it evolved and stuff, but the long and the short of it is that all the codes for lower extremity revascularization have been redone. And so as of January 1st, we'll have brand new codes. The old codes will no longer exist. When you create new codes like that, they also have to be revalued. And so it's a two-step process where you create the codes, then you have to assign a value to the code. And so that was an opportunity to more or less update some of the technology that we use for some of these more complex procedures. And that's how that evolved. But the code set has evolved, and there's a couple new things that I'm excited about. First of all, they've doubled the codes. They've made simple codes, and then they made complex codes. And the complex code is any chronic occlusion. It doesn't matter what length it is. It could be 1 centimeter, it could be 30 centimeters, doesn't matter. If it's a chronic occlusion, it's labeled as a complex intervention. Everything else is simple. And that's just how they broke it up. And we had a lot of debate on how to define complex and simple, but that was the easiest way to do it. So whether you have a 30 centimeter, 99% stenosis, whether that's truly simple or not, we can debate that, but that's kind of how the code set evolved. So anything that's a chronic occlusion is complex. Anything that's not a chronic occlusion is simple. In addition to that, they've added add-on IVL codes. So now there'll be shockwave codes or IVL, whatever the next generation of IVL device is, for femoral popliteal and aortoiliac intervention. Those are add-ons. There will be new codes for below the ankle intervention. So now if you dilate anything below the ankle, that's a separate code. Then there's also now an additional code for common femoral profunda will be treated separately from SFA and popliteal. So now there's 2 separate codes for that level. So there'll be some good changes, but I think what really is going to help is that revaluing the codes and the complex codes, we're now, if you're using embolic protection devices and crossing catheters and all this other devices, that's taken into account with some of the complexity of the code. So that's where kind of some of the incremental reimbursement comes from. So it's been really good, really good.
So do you think that this is going to fuel more of an exodus to outpatient models of care? Or do you think some people will feel tickled to jump if they were on the fence?
I think that the exodus is being provided by hospital administrators that nobody fucking wants to work with. And that's the reality of it. I mean, why would you want to work in that shithole environment? That's just my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I mean, how much happier are you being away from that stuff? I mean, and so I think that the exodus to move to outpatient facilities is already reached a point where it's not going to turn around. Right now, however academic vascular surgeons want to criticize us, it is still 4 times cheaper to do a procedure in an outpatient lab than it is to do in a hospital. 4 times cheaper. Okay. So if I put a stent and an SFA in my office, the hospital gets paid 4 times more for the exact same procedure. I don't know how anybody can argue that that's not cost effective to do this in an outpatient setting. And so I think it's just going to continue. People are going to leave the hospital,
The old needs to die.
I think the now what's going to become a threat to more people having exodus is you're going to have to do it in areas where there's not a lot of these big pockets trying to come in.
Many great communities in this country where you can go and throw a dart at a map and set up a shop and take care of a lot of people.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what I think. I think it's for any of you young people out there listening, close to graduating or thinking about maybe it's 2-3 years and you want to get out of where you're at. Go somewhere far.
In nature.
Go far away. Find a nice area where you can puddle hop out into a nice airport that then you could go wherever in the world, but be far away from, because guess what? It pays the fucking same to do it there than to do it in the middle of a mecca city. And you're not fighting all of these now private equity firms that are hyper funding these activities. I mean, I put a lot of effort in training our techs to do pedal mapping, pedal velocities, like all these other things that I've been enamored with. And somebody that I had for 3 years just came the other day and says like, oh, I'm taking a job at a vein clinic. And like this person really enjoyed like complex, thought-provoking stuff. And I was like, okay, you want to give me a fucking shot at least understanding? And then this person said, I'm getting a 30% raise
Mm.
and a $10,000 sign-on bonus.
Boom.
I was like, $10,000 is what I got paid as a sign-on bonus like 8 years ago or 9 years ago when I first came as a vascular surgeon
Yeah.
to a big facility. And so this private equity firm is throwing money at these people. And so, of course, I mean, I'm fighting with one hand tied now. So before it was like, okay, well, fuck the hospitals and like, I'm going to be really good. And now I'm here. And I was like, oh, now fuck the sharks. Like these people are throwing money all over the place. It's going to be really hard because the internet, the social media that they do, they have business development people left and right. It's very hard to develop. So listen, the model is sustainable. It's great and it'll make you happy. Just don't be stupid. Don't do it in Scottsdale. Don't do it in New York City.
How about in the center of the medical center in Houston?
Don't do it in the center of the medical center. Don't be Miguel Montero. Go to fucking Davenport and kill people on the highway.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Listen, brother, it's an hour. I told you we'd steal an hour of your time. We haven't even gotten into the good stuff, but
Well,
that
we'll
just
have you
means
come
that,
back.
yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna say, like, you've been a very nice treat to speak to. It's
You're
easy.
fun. I like this, guys. Eric is fun. Let's go to Davenport.
You listen to him talk and then listen to me talk and tell me that he hasn't mentored me throughout the years.
Oh, I see. I see some patterns, my friend. I see some patterns.
We've had some adventures, man. We've been all over the place.
We sure did. We sure did. We actually thought we lost a friend once in the middle of Bogota. Oh, we'll keep that story for next time. Eric, love you,
Yeah.
brother. Take care
Thank
out
you so
there.
much, Eric.
We'll be in touch soon.